What is a shot? A shot is from the moment you press record to the moment you press stop recording. Okay, that's a shot. It's your most basic unit of a film. Shot structure is what makes up scenes. So you have a series of shots. They will be of different lengths and of different types, have different frame sizes, and those will make up your scenes. Shots are the language of film. They are your vocabulary. And your decisions about whether to use a long shot or a close-up or a high-angle shot totally impact on how your viewer is going to receive whatever's in that shot. They signify what's important. So get used to using the abbreviations as well, particularly when it comes to doing your shot lists and your storyboards. Long shots, they enable you to see, they often use as establishing shots to introduce a new scene or a new location. They show a wide view of the environment, so you can immediately see whether you're in a park or in a city or in a classroom. If you begin a scene in a new location with a close-up, they could be anywhere. So they're quite a good way of cheating things. If you want to imagine somebody's in somewhere that you can't get to, you can cover that scene in a close-up and maybe add sound effects to give the impression of being, on Mars or something. Okay, the grammar of the shot. There's a number of things that need to be thought about when you're creating or designing a shot. As you see here, you've got the relationship between shots and scenes. So you have the scene in the middle and you have 1 to 8 being 8 shots are making up this particular scene. And in each shot, there are a number of things that need to be considered. Motivation, is that shot motivated, particularly if it's got a movement? Why is that shot in there? What is its function? Is it creating atmosphere? Is it building tension, suspense? Is it giving me information about something that I need to know in order to understand the plot or the story? Composition, how am I framing this shot? What are the relationship between the objects within the frame? Chair in the foreground, person sitting behind. Composition is a way of drawing on the tools and languages of a particular genre, making sure your film looks like the genre you want it to look like. Okay, so sound. You need to think about what sound's going with that image. Starting to be aware of sort of random background sounds that might be just out of shot that you don't necessarily want in there. Camera angle as well. So the relationship between your camera and your subject. Is it a low-angle shot or a high-angle shot? The position of the camera in relation to the subject has a psychological impact, an effect on how the viewer, again, responds to what you're showing them in that shot. Then you need to think about continuity. You don't want to have jump cuts. So if you think about making a scene, which when on the screen you watch it and it lasts a minute and a half, but it might have taken the production team 2 or 3 hours to shoot. But all that needs to it needs to play back as though it all just happened, one moment after another, in seamless continuity. Okay, so the shot, thinking about the relationship between content and form, or, subject and style. Again, we've been thinking about framing. The question to ask, what do we see within the frame of the shot? Focus is important, both in terms of narrative, exposition, but also visually. You can't really do much in terms of adjusting the focus on these little cameras. Obviously, the more sophisticated cameras you have, the more opportunities you have for adjusting focus. Exposure, is there enough light? Again, with these cameras, you can't do any manual exposure control. So the only thing, you still need to think about exposure, and the only ways you can adjust exposure then is by literally, you have to change the environment that you're in. So even just simple using available lighting, and when used well, it can be very, very helpful. You don't need to have big fancy lights. Just, an extra angle poise here, or an extra, standing light there, or even just sometimes just flicking the switch and putting the lights on in a room can help out enormously. Movement. Is there movement in the shot? Does the camera need to move? There are 2 types of shots. There are static shots and there are moving shots. Static shots are simple enough. You've got your camera on a tripod, that's not moving, and your subject's not moving. It gets more complex when you've got subjects and cameras moving, and when you come to that point, it's good to think about choreographing the relationship between the camera and the subject. It's all about timing, creating pace and rhythm, making sure that you can, if you want to do a chase scene, you might want to do a point of view shot. Using the camera as a character's eye is a really effective and emotive way of drawing the viewer instantly into the world of a character. Obviously, point of view shots can be long shots or close-ups or medium shots, but they tend to be handheld because the point of a point of view shot is that they reproduce the subjectivity of the character. When you're coming out of a POV shot, when you go into a POV shot, you need to think about what those shots are and how those transitions work. And you can have POVs of inanimate objects as well as living and breathing things and animals too. You know, so you can have lots of sort of fun with POV. Especially with these cameras, because they're so small, the advantage with these is getting them into places that larger cameras can't get to. Too much movement obviously becomes quite hard to watch, particularly, which you need to bear in mind with these films, they're going to be on a big screen. I mean, I love good handheld photography, observational kind of photography, but I know some people find it very, very difficult to watch, particularly in cinemas, and it can make you feel quite nauseous. Just bear that in mind, particularly with kids, they tend to, run around at 5 million miles an hour, getting them to sort of slow down, use a combination. If they want to use handheld, try and get them to do at least a few, tripod static shots in there just to, give the viewer a moment of reprieve. And if they are doing movement, then they need to, it's like public speaking, you need to speak twice as slowly as you think you do in order for it to sound normal to your listeners, Likewise with filming, with filming handheld, the slightest movement is amplified, 10 times on a large screen. So just keep everything, even though, yes, you want it to have energy and it's a chase scene, it's a point of view shot, but still, do it slower than if you were actually really running away from somebody. Just sort of slow it down